Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Eerie International, episode 479 this week. My name is David from the United States.
I'm Andi from Germany.
And I'm Dave from the UK.
And we are reunited to talk about an Alfred Hitchcock classic, The Birds, a movie that I don't know. You know what? I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. We normally do this at the segment, but have you guys seen this movie before, or is this the first time for all three of us?
I've seen it before. Yeah, I think I may have brought it up on a previous episode.
Okay, Andi,
at some point.
had you?
Only bits. I've never seen the whole movie before.
Okay, that was the same for me. I was just talking to our friend Austin earlier about how there's a bunch of Hitchcock movies for me where it feels like I've seen them because they're just so pervasive in pop culture. But when I actually sit down to watch it, I realize I've never seen this movie before, and that was The Birds this week. So thanks for completely ruining that entire bit, Dave, by being British and having seen The Birds already. So that's on you. Welcome to the podcast. If this is your first time listening, we are a horror show. We talk about horror stuff, including movies where birds attack people on a large scale. You can find us wherever you found us online. Subscribe, rate, review, blah, 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 all that stuff. We're also on social media. Easiest place these days is Instagram at Eerie International. Yeah, give us a follow, send us thoughts. Interact with us. We love hearing from you. And then we also have a Gmail account if you want to send us some longer form thoughts, eerieinternational@gmail.com. We have two emails this week. One from our good friend Elio, which I'm going to read first, and then I'm going to throw the ball to Dave because I've been sick all week with a sore throat, and so I'm trying to space out how much I talk on this episode. Elio writes in, guys, thanks for watching Red Rooms. I thought it was honestly a really good episode of the pod. You guys had some interesting views on it. I think you did a really interesting deep dive. Really liked this movie. Had you thinking, and it made pretty direct commentary without being too pushy or without being too in your face. Some stuff that I saw this week. Send help. This was such a fun movie experience. I went to the Alamo to watch it, and it was so great. It was gross, bloody, intense, just really enjoyable. And I also do want to highlight the movie If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. This was great. Not a horror at all, more of a psychological drama. It was just intense, and you watch the slow unraveling of a woman. It was a really good watch. Probably one of the better movies I've seen. Definitely worth a rec. That one is also on my list. I saw the trailer. It was already on my list because I'm a big Conan O'Brien fan, and I saw he was in a dramatic, well, I guess it's like dramatic comedic, darkly comedic maybe, role. And then I saw the trailer and was like, oh, this looks amazing. So it's on my list for sure. And now I'm already going to stop talking and throw it over to Dave because we have one more email.
We do.
Take it away.
Well, I just looked at the formatting for this email, and you've given me the easy one, clearly. There's some editing to be done in post, so hopefully this will sound somewhat like I'm hoping it will in the future. But for the guys that are listening to it live here, Andy and David, they're going to be very confused. Hello, Eerie International. This is a Smart Otaku here to say hello and see how you three are doing. Despite all the insanity that has been put my way, I'm doing good. That's good to hear. Got a lot of things planned and set up for this year, and I'm hoping it all pays off. Anyways, just wanted to leave a couple of recommendations for you guys and a bonus message. As always, your call on how much you want to read aloud. That's it from me. Take care. Otaku, I'm reading everything. Right, so number one, Gennady Tartakovsky's Primal. Genres are adult cartoon, sword and sorcery, action, and horror adjacent. Synopsis: Primal follows the life and struggles of an early human known as Spear and his dinosaur hunting partner named Fang. Together, the pair do everything they can to live in a world where life is a constant struggle for survival and only the fittest are allowed to live. Personal opinions. I've mentioned this show before and have sung its praises many times over. The reason why I'm bringing it up now is because Season 3 just released and it's introduced a heavy horror focus on the story. I unfortunately can't say too much as it would spoil the events of Season 2, but I think it's worth a watch. Also, there's a standalone episode in Season 2 that tells a really good horror story. Season 2, Episode 5, The Primal Theory, takes place in the 1800s and follows two men of science who debate over what separate... Oh, God, I can't read. Takes place in the 1800s and follows two men of science who debate over what separates a savage man from a civilized one and are then forced to fight for their lives when an escaped asylum inmate breaks into their home. That episode alone is worth the watch and does a good job of showcasing the strengths of this show without spoiling the overall story. Regardless, I highly recommend Primal whenever you get the chance. Dave jumping in here for a second. I think Primal is the show that the entirety of season 1 was completely wordless, if I remember correctly.
I'm pretty sure that's true, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my memory, at least. And I think I watched the first season.
I think
it was back when it came out, so it was a long time ago.
I saw like half an episode. It was typically wonderful Tartakovsky animation and design. And then I think it was just a case of it wasn't that easy to get hold of over here. I'm going to have to double check that now because things can change over the course of several years. But it's good to see that it's still going. I did see some rumblings about Primal when it came out. Although having said that, I'm now realizing it was on the Generation Animation Discord server. So it was probably Otaku that was actually posting about it.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah. Definitely sounds like something that I need to give a look at. Certainly that episode, Primal Theory. Right, second recommendation. And this is the one where things get a bit weird, everybody. So strap yourselves in. The Amazing Digital Circus. Genre, web animation, mascot horror, psychological, sci-fi. Synopsis. The Amazing Digital Circus is a web animation made by Glitch Productions that follows...
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Nope, nah, absolutely not. If we're going to talk about the greatest place in cyberspace, then we're going to do it right with a dog barking in the background. Give me a spotlight. Drum roll. Distinguished gentlemen of the Underworld cast.
What the fuck? That's not the name of their show.
You are cordially invited...
Hello?
...to join the Amazing Digital Circus. My name is Kane, the host of this fine establishment, and I am here to show you the most jaw-dropping, heart-stopping, mind-bending curiosities and oddities you will ever see. Yes, sir, it is never a dull moment here in the Amazing Digital Circus, and yes, sir, it is never a dull moment here in the Amazing Digital Circus, and yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, 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 yeah. Why? Don't just take my word for it, just listen to what some of our longtime fans have to say. It's just a dream, I'm gonna wake up, it's just a dream.
Mommy? Daddy? I want to go home. I don't want to be here anymore.
That's right, once you stop by, you'll never want to leave, and thankfully for you, you can't.
Personal opinions.
Who cares about what ASMR to Tacos has to say? Why not just drop on by and see for yourselves? There are only 1 or 2 episodes left in the season and the whole show is available on YouTube for free. Plus there are 18 different language and subtitle options including Portuguese and German. So hop on by. The circus can always use more clowns.
Bonus message. Just wanted to say 2 things. One, a thank you. So in the last couple of episodes, you guys were discussing how reading is something that fewer and fewer people do. Fewer and fewer people are doing nowadays. It shows, doesn't it, with my reading skills. And that actually pushed me to pick up an old hobby of mine. Before the pandemic, I would go to Barnes & Noble once a week and buy a slice of cheesecake, a cola, and read whatever book caught my attention. That's how I ended up getting Dracula, Frankenstein, Journey to the Center of the Earth, and Dante's Inferno into my collection. Going to be doing that more this year, and I just wanted to say thank you for giving me another reason to get off my computer and be more active. Number 2, a request. Oh, okay. All right. Let's see. I've not pre-read this, so this could be anything. It's staying in the episode, so let's hope it's clean. If it's not too much to ask, I was wondering if you guys would be willing to do an episode for Call of the Night. When I first recommended it, I joked that it would make a good pick for a vampire theme month. And when you guys kept doing Underworld movies, in the back of my head, I wondered if you guys were actually going through with that idea. Regardless, I think you guys would really enjoy the anime and would love to hear your thoughts of it. If not, I understand, and that's perfectly fine. And that's everything from a smart Otaku. I would love to do Call of the Night. I don't know if I can get access to it, but I will find a way if I have to.
That's always the first kind consideration. Also, Dave, thanks for reading that email. I would my throat would have been bleeding.
I mean, the good news is that I only had to read half of it. Some weird, colourful guy jumped in and took over halfway through, so it was fine. But yeah, no, absolutely.
Do either of you guys know about this show, The Amazing Digital Circus?
Yeah, I think we may have watched the first episode when it came out years ago on Gen An, and it is just crazy. Just being on YouTube and being free gives you a lot of latitude to just do random crap, just throw a load of stuff at the wall that you want to do and see what comes off. And it's a really interesting and really fun thought exercise in let's take the shackles off and see what we can do. It's very, how can I explain it? So if you took Tron and Reboot and then took some Nicktoons from the 90s and kind of mashed it all together, that would be like 1/10 of what this show is. I'm probably not doing it any favors describing it in such a way, but it's visually, from what I remember of it, it's very mismatched because the idea is that you've got different people, different members of the circus who have been drawn in from different parts of the internet. And so they all look and act and are very different to each other.
I was not, well, let me, before I jump into that, Andi, were you familiar with the show?
No, I'm not.
Okay. I too was not. I had no, and when I first saw the email, I was like, okay, I can at least glean from the context of the email that there's like kind of what it might be about, or it clearly has some sort of like, strong streak of personality through it. And the way that the way that the email was beamed into us. But the looking it up, as soon as you said Reboot, the way it's described on Wikipedia is that it's inspired by that like early CG of the 90s. So that's what I thought of too, was Reboot. And what was the fucking Transformer show I used to watch all the time? Beast Wars. I don't know if they had Beast Wars over on the other side of the pond, but
yeah, they did.
It was awful, like animation wise, terrible. But at the time, and then also mixed with the short story, which I have not brought. Well, maybe I mentioned to you guys in the past. I can't remember. I've been trying to figure out a way. It's not one that we could probably do a whole episode around because it's just a short story. But I loved the short story when I read it. I'm sure I brought it up on the show. So at some point, I want to figure out a way to build an episode around it, whether it's this and a few other short stories. I've looked at a few options, but specifically the Harlan Ellison short story called I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. So two wildly different sources of inspiration. But also, as soon as I saw those 2 points of reference, I was like, oh, shit, I bet I'll be into this. This is like combining two very specific places of interest for me. So, yeah, that's fully on my list now. And the vampire show, I definitely want to do as well. When he first emailed us about it, I thought it sounded great. And I feel bad now that we potentially misled a little bit with Underworld, but that was Andi forcing our hand to turn it into an Underworld podcast, and purely that.
Yeah, it's all your fault, Andy.
Yeah. But yeah, as long as we all can get access to it, anime's a roll of the dice, it feels like, anyway, country to country, with certain like rights and distribution and all that kind of stuff. But we'll look into it for sure. I think it's based off a manga too, but we'll see if we can find the anime.
Yeah, it looks like it is based on a manga series. Just seeing if I can find it. It doesn't look like it's officially available over here, but I haven't checked Crunchyroll yet. So
I wouldn't be surprised if it's on one of those services. Maybe we could do like a week trial of or something if we don't have it.
There are ways and means. People that are regular Generation Animation listeners will know there are ways and means.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll find where it is, and then we'll look into it. Something out. Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's get into, before that, thank you both to Elio and to Smart Otaku for writing, and as always, we love hearing from you. It's always a great time when you do, and it was exciting this week to have 2 emails to read too, so appreciate that. Let's get into what we got into this week. I will kick us off. I only have one thing. I went and saw Send Help, which we've heard from Elio already about. This is the new Sam Raimi film. Starring Rachel McAdams and Dylan is it Dylan O'Brien? I think that's his name. The kid from Love and Monsters. Yeah, Dylan O'Brien. I liked it. I thought it was fun. It's weird. I'm in like a kind of a weird boat where I have all the sentiments that a lot of horror fans do about it. It's a horror movie, or it's more of a thriller from Sam Raimi. And obviously, we have talked about Sam Raimi on the show before, covered different films. Evil Dead's in my top 5 favorite horror movies of all time. A huge Raimi fan overall. So, not having a horror film from him or a thriller film since, you can kind of count Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I probably wouldn't. There were little glimmers in that movie of his style, but mostly it's just kind of an MCU mess. At least that's my memory. I've only seen it once. So really, since Drag Me to Hell, I've seen a lot of people talk about this movie like it's this majestic return of the horror king Sam Raimi, and that it's like in one of his best movies and all this, which I am not on board for it at all. I think it is a lot of fun. I think that it's got 2 great leads. Both of them are totally down for the kind of weird tonal shift that the movie has. You guys have seen the trailer for anyone who doesn't know, and I'll be careful not to spoil it too much because it is brand new. Like, it came out in theaters here in the States last weekend. It's about a like very mild-mannered, kind of nerdy, awkward woman, played by Rachel McAdams, who is passed over and just not taken seriously by her peers at work. She's very lonely. She's a big like Survivor fan, the TV show Survivor. So, and just survival techniques and wilderness stuff. Anyway, like she reads books and is very into all that stuff. And she's with her like brand new douchebag boss who is pretty much written her off, denied her this promotion she was promised. And they're on this trip overseas and their plane crashes and they're the only 2 survivors on this island. So it becomes this sort of like, I've seen Raimi push back against this in some press interviews in the sense that he was like, I intentionally didn't watch these movies because I didn't want to have them in my head when I made this. So it doesn't feel like he's doing a riff on these movies. The script itself, I think, just inherently has a similar vibe. So I'll still make the points of comparison, but it's almost kind of like Castaway mixed with Misery a bit, where you have power dynamics going on. When they crash, his leg is messed up. She has all the power now, so everything's shifted, and you're trying to figure out. You could tell he's a douchebag, but you're trying to figure out with her, like, is she eccentric or is she maybe crazy? You can't totally tell, and the movie plays with that throughout. So a big part of it is just that push and pull of like, is this supposed to be weird and funny, or is she scary? Is he maybe starting to become more sympathetic, or now we're more sympathetic with her? Like, the movie is playing that game the entire time. So yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun. There's definitely moments in it that are very much the Raimi sort of aesthetic or vibe when it comes to especially like vomiting and like gore, not necessarily gore, but like kind of goopy effects and some of the stuff that would make you laugh and Drag Me to Hell that was just so over the top. But the script, I think, it's fine. It's pretty predictable in a lot of ways. I think that's the weakest part for me, is not that I have to have Raimi write every single one of his scripts, but he got kind of like the gang back together as old. So it's Morawski on editing, fucking Bill Pope cinematography, Danny Elfman's score. Like, it's all these guys that he's worked with. The script, as far as I know, is 2 newer people in terms of people that he's worked with. I could be wrong, but I was pretty sure that they were newer screenwriters. And that was the thing I struggled the most with throughout the film. So it's definitely awesome. Definitely enjoyed it. If you're a Sam Raimi like fan, I think there's a lot there to enjoy, and it feels like, oh, cool, we get another Sam Raimi movie. But I would not put it as one of his best. Like, I think when I've seen people doing that, I'm just like, fucking, you know how many awesome movies this dude has made? Like, this doesn't crack the top half for me. But not because it's bad. He's just, I wouldn't put it up against even Drag Me to Hell necessarily. I think is a lot better. And part of that also might be the tone. Like, it's not explicitly horror. It's much more of like a thriller. But still very fun. And like the fact also that Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien are just all in on it, like that helps tremendously. Like, they're both game for how goofy and weird and kind of goopy and messy and just like strange the movie gets. So in spite of, I think, some of maybe the script's sort of misgivings or maybe stumbling blocks, everything else around it, I think kind of joins together to elevate it a little bit higher. So I don't know. I'm trying not to be like too, what's the word I'm looking for? Reductive with my praise at the same time. But I've just noticed a lot of people talking about it like on Letterboxd and horror fans where they're just like one of the best films of the year. And I'm just like, I fucking hope it's not because it wasn't amazing. But I did like it and I had fun with it. And I would recommend it. There's enough moments in there for sure where it's just kind of exciting to get another Sam Raimi movie. So I don't know. That's also been a nice thing too, is seeing all these press interviews with him. He's obviously older now, and it doesn't look like he's in bad or rough shape or anything, but it does kind of remind you, like, you're so used to seeing like even Spider-Man movies came out fucking 20 years ago now. So, you know, he still has the same sort of vibe and wearing a suit and is just kind of seems very gleeful and excited to be making movies, and that energy and sort of charm is pretty infectious. So I've also really enjoyed seeing all these clips of him talking about stuff and reminiscing about making horror movies. And so I don't know if he feels up for it. I would love to see more Sam Raimi movies again. I think that would be a great thing. But I have wondered, even sitting there in the theater watching it with my friend Sean, I was like, and my friend Sean had already seen it once. He went back and watched it again with me because we have that membership thing or whatever. And even watching it with him, I was sitting there in the theater, like we were laughing at stuff, but also I was just like, how the fuck is this stuff landing for other people here? Like the Sam Raimi style is not, I don't know that it was ever in vogue, but like if there was a time for it, it's not now. Like people don't really remember him. And like, it's a very specific, weird style. And Peter Jackson has a little bit of it. Peter Jackson has a little bit of it too. And we've talked about his movies, but it's this like weird blend of comedy and horror, but very specific and very strange if you're not used to it. So I've wondered how it will land with modern audiences. 'Cause yeah, there's not really a shorthand for this kind of tone anymore. I mean, the easiest thing would be to point to movies that he's made. And, you know, the newest of those is like Drag Me to Hell came out when 2009, maybe 8. I don't remember now. It was also close to 20 years ago. So anyway, but yeah, really enjoyed it. And would recommend people go check it out if any of that sounds interesting at all to you. And that is it for me this week. So let me throw the ball over to our good friend Andi in Germany.
And again, I do have nothing to report. I had no horror intake this week. Sorry. So Dave.
All good.
No trouble. Yeah, so a couple of things this week. I finished Stranger Things season 5, and yeah, both of you were absolutely bob on. Like, that landing was fantastic. Can't discuss any of it because I don't want to be that person that spoils it for anyone. But all I can say is that, like, if you've heard anything to the contrary, don't believe it. Trust your own instincts. And if you
there's
enjoy
a secret final episode coming, Dave. I don't know if you've heard this.
Yeah, and I can see where people got that idea, like that rooftop conversation between some characters talking about some reunion that they could do down the line, like meeting up in Philadelphia or wherever it was. That did feel like it was almost codified, like there was something there that people could get their teeth into. But the show has never done that before. It's never it's never done anything which has almost broken the fourth wall and been like, well, if you were paying attention, you would have seen that we said this, and so here comes this thing.
I'll tell you how I took that scene without spoiling it. And I talked to my dad, told me the exact same without me bringing it up. We were just kind of talking generally about the finale, and he was like, I also really liked how in this scene I felt like this, which is exactly how I felt, which was that it feels like kind of, it's in a similar way to the final scene of the show where it's like, I feel like those characters on that rooftop maybe will meet up again, but you can also tell that they kind of know it probably won't happen forever. Like there's a finality to it too.
Yeah.
Like they kind of know, like, it's going to be harder and harder for us to keep doing this. Like they're trying to hold on to it, but it's this like bittersweet thing of just like that's how life is. Like it's incredibly difficult, like especially if you're at an age now where you've gotten to where people move away and it's harder to keep in touch or whatever. Like that's how I viewed that scene. Was just like, oh, it's another kind of variation of the similar idea of moving on from childhood and in their case like young adulthood. But
Stand By Me ending. I have no idea why people thought this could not be the ending. In 2016, when I saw the first series, had been out a few days. I was away for the weekend. I came home. I had a week off from work. We watched the first season in a day. I think the next day I watched Stand By Me. Definitely that week I rewatched Stand By Me. So for me, the connection between Stranger Things and Stand By Me is very, very close from the start, just autobiographically, personally. and then they do this ending, and it's so close to Stand By Me. I've seen like 2 or 3 videos over the past couple of weeks where people I didn't search out those videos, but it were just videos from YouTubers that we just generally watch their new videos, and they were complaining about the last season of Stranger Things. I still don't know what the problem is, to be honest. So, fuck them all.
Yeah, and in related horror news, because you just reminded me by bringing up Stand By Me, Will Wheaton is going to be doing the audiobook for a new version of The Body, which of course is the book that Stand By Me was based on, and he is in that movie as well. So lovely little bit of synergy going on there. And the moment that Stand By Me came up, I was like, "There's something about Will Wheaton I want to talk about now." So I have. But yeah, like I completely get what you're saying there, Andy. I think I may have to go and rewatch Stand By Me now. It's been fucking years. I didn't even know what it was when I watched it. When I saw it, it was because it's kind of one of those films that if you miss the credit saying based on a novella by Stephen King, you wouldn't necessarily just associate it with his work in the same way that like The Green Mile, the most famous Stephen King adaptation. But seriously, like if he just was like, I don't want you putting my name on it, and why on earth would he not want his name on it? But if he did, would everybody that went there that hadn't already read the book and known that it was his work have had any clue? Like, probably not.
No, you were kidding with The Green Mile, but Shawshank Redemption is literally that. The most famous Stephen King adaptation that you wouldn't necessarily point out as a typical Stephen King story.
Yeah, I've picked absolutely the wrong option there. Andy has come to the rescue once again. Thank you. But yeah, there were several character beats during this last season that I really enjoyed. I thought that Natalie Dyer's character Nancy was just fucking fantastic. She's just channeling Ripley,
Sarah Connor,
and Sarah Connor, and all of those kind of 80s, 70s and 80s action heroines. I can't be too specific about talking about everybody because I'll be talking about people that have endings which I don't want to spoil. So, but there is, I don't think it will be any surprise to anyone for me to mention that Dungeons and Dragons comes up in the final episode in 2 different ways. First of all, there's an action set piece, which it feels very Dungeons and Dragons, and I fucking loved it. And then there is a Dungeons and Dragons kind of coda at the end, and an almost like passing of the torch moment between the characters we've been following and some younger characters as well. That felt fucking awesome. I loved it. I thought it approached the finale very much in a Lord of the Rings light kind of way, where it was like, okay, here are several endings, but they're all fucking bangers, so you're not going to care. And I dug it for the reasons that, one ending gives closure to parents, one ending gives closure to the party, one ending gives closure to the older kids who aren't in the party but were absolutely allies to them. It's fucking great. So go and watch Stranger Things season 5 if you haven't already. The other thing that I saw this week, and this another thanks to my mother, who randomly will put things on and I'll just start watching them through osmosis because it's on while I'm doing something else. Interview with the Vampire. The TV series, not the film. I watched the film not too long ago, but the AMC...
The new one then, yeah?
Yeah, the AMC series.
Austin showed Sean and I a scene from this. I want to say it's from the first episode, not too long ago, and it was shockingly violent.
Oh yeah,
and he was telling us about how much he loved it. So I've heard good things.
Yeah, definitely. Now I'm not going to pretend that I've read the Anne Rice novels because I have not, but I have looked up several people talking about it, and there are allusions to things in the Wikipedia article that talk about how close this version of the show is to the books in comparison to the film from '94, and it definitely sounds as though it is a lot closer to what Anne Rice wrote than the film that came out with Cruise and Pitt and et al.
That's another cosign he made when he was showing it to us, because he's read the first 5 of those books, maybe more, and he read them a lot when he was younger. Yeah, so he's a fan, and he was excited about how faithful it felt.
It definitely has that feeling of like I'm just going to write this book and balls to the wall, I don't care. Like there's an awful lot. I said to my mum when she started watching it, I was like, there's an awful lot of homosexuality in this show, so ready yourself.
I think that stuff specifically might be newer. I think there are some things that but like the core of it or the ideas that they're riffing on, you could tell they're fans of the source material.
Yeah, my understanding was that the Louis Lestat thing was always very much a lover's story rather than how it was portrayed in '94, where it was kind of like insinuated, but you never got real kind of confirmation that it was one thing or the other. I think the film definitely went down the route of, well, I am your maker and master, and so we have this weird, unnatural relationship anyway because it's vampiric. But then there are so many sources of vampire fiction where it's used as an allegory for queerness or like the AIDS epidemic and things like that, which inextricably those two things go hand in hand, especially back in the 1980s. So yeah, this is very, very violent. It feels like they took the lessons from shows like True Blood and they were like, yeah, we can be really fucking graphic and violent with this shit. And they really do go for it. I've seen up to like episode 6 of season 1 and then a small amount of season 2, which, because I went out to do stuff, and when I came back, this is where I get my anime streaming time-bending powers from. By the time I got back, they were well into the end of season 2. I was like, I wasn't away that long. How the fuck did this happen? So I've kind of seen bits here or there. Thankfully, the first 2 seasons really just act as an adaptation of the first book, and in turn, the movie from '94 was kind of mostly the first book, but then they threw in some later stuff just to kind of tie it all together. It played a little bit fast and loose with Lestat because there's a whole story coming in season 3 with Lestat. It's based on the book, the Vampire Lestat. Apparently he becomes like a rock and roll star, because of course he fucking does. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what they do with that. But yeah, very violent, very graphic. Plays to a different time period than the movie did. The movie was based in like the plantation days of like the 1700s. And early 1800s, I would guess. I'm not an expert in that time frame. Whereas this one specifically is based in the early 1900s originally. So Louis is the owner of a kind of bar and whorehouse, casino kind of place in somewhere in the southern states of America, like Savannah or Illinois. I'm not entirely sure where. I wasn't paying that much attention. But they certainly make it fit and they make it work. mainly, I don't know what the original setting was in the books, so I don't know which one is more in keeping with it. But what I will say is that, bearing in mind that Louis is played by Jacob Anderson, who is a black man, probably a good idea that they didn't have him as the owner of a plantation. Just going to throw that one out there.
Yeah,
that wouldn't have worked. So the fact that
I'm also sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say I'm also especially excited to see him because I have only heard him. I've mentioned to you guys that gaming channel on YouTube that I'll listen to a lot while I work, Game Grumps. I've been listening to them for since I was in high school, off and on. They've had Jacob Anderson on a few times for their guest show where they're just sitting around playing games, and he's super funny and is talking shit with them, bantering constantly to the point where that was my only. He was also in Game of Thrones. I think he was Grey Worm.
He was Grey Worm.
Game of Thrones. Yeah. So I vaguely remembered him from that, but all I've heard is that he's great in this show, and it's been so hard for me to separate this like very funny, goofy, like kind of joking, shit talking guy on this video game podcast, and then think like, oh, they're going to be this like very well received dramatic turn on this show. So I've been excited about that too. And then Austin has praised the guy who plays Lestat. He's talked about how much he loves Lestat's character, but then this guy just is like one of those that feels like he's born for this role
because he grew up reading the books apparently and revisited them. Yeah, so he was already aware of the Vampire Chronicles. I'm basing this on what I read on Wikipedia, so I can't vouch for it being 100%. But apparently, he read them when he was a kid, and then when he got the part, he reread them to prepare for the role. And he also went to the length of taking singing and piano lessons because Lestat is a very theatrical, very musical character in this show. And so he wanted to be able to do that justice. And he absolutely fucking does. Like, he's so good as Lestat. Like, very likable at times and then extremely hateable at other times, which that character absolutely needs because he's a very damaged, I was going to call him human being, but he's a vampire. So he's a very, very damaged vampire, which hopefully we'll see more of in the third season again. But yeah, Jacob Anderson, it's no surprise to me you talking about how he's really like a funny, jovial guy. Because I remember when the first few seasons of Game of Thrones were releasing, and season 1 was like the sleeper hit that got everyone's attention. And then from season 2 onwards, over here on UK TV, Sky had it. And they had like a sister show where they would get people in that were part of the production and they would interview them about it. And it was one of those shows that went on right after the episode aired. So it was like a reaction magazine show where it was like, what the hell did we just see? And they would talk to the audience about it and get fan theories. And then they would have someone from the crew or the cast come in and they would talk with them about like how they approached filming certain scenes and all that kind of stuff. And I remember Jacob being on one episode and like all you see of Grey Worm through the entire show is this very stoic, very quiet, eventually quite passionate man, but still like not much there in terms of personality early on, certainly. And he came on this show and I was like, I see Grey Worm, but this guy is just so fucking different. And I was just blown away by just how different he was in his own self, and that just made me so much more impressed with him when he was on the show because of just how different he played Grey Worm. Honestly, like, yeah, a really funny guy and like very personable, very likable. And I've not seen him in too many other things, actually. Like, just looking at his biography, apparently he was in Broadchurch. I completely missed that. Yeah, like I saw, again, Broadchurch was a show that I only saw for the first time recently, and it was through the prism of it's on TV because someone else in the house is watching it, and I'm just taking it in through osmosis while I play Football Manager or something. So I must have missed the moment where he was in it. Either that or I've just completely...
That show's also... It's also stacked with people that either were just getting ready to become much more popular or went on to become, have their, like, it's the first time I saw Phoebe Waller-Bridge. It's the first time I saw the woman
Jodie
that
Whittaker.
she works with on the show. Well, her too, Jodie Whittaker, but the other lawyer that she works with who ended up being the fucking Mother Superior in Dune. I forget that actress's name. Like,
oh, Jesus.
There are tons of people throughout the show where I would see them later on. So it doesn't surprise me he was on it. But yeah, I don't remember specifically. That's a great show. All three seasons of that show are really good.
Yeah, we did start watching season 2, and then I kind of tailed off and did something else. So I never saw the conclusion. I do need to go back and watch it. Apparently there was a US remake, but David Tennant was in that as well. So
yeah, he played the same character, just
so
an American. I've watched scenes. Yeah. I never watched the whole thing, but I've watched scenes, and it's so weird because it's a lot of the blocking is the same. And then his partner in the American show is played by the actress who played Skylar on Breaking Bad.
Oh, nice.
So it's this like weird. It almost looks like when you see a fake show inside, like in a movie that you're watching, and then it's like a parody show or whatever. Like it has this weird vibe of like familiar, but also slightly off. But if you were in the U.S. and hadn't seen the original, it just seemed like another procedural show or whatever.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
His chemistry with, I forget, Olivia Colman is that whole dynamic is so good on that show.
Oh God, yeah. Like Olivia Colman just.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Like, how the fuck is she that good? Like, I remember seeing her on like Mitchell and Webb, and they did a film called The Magicians, I think it was, at one point, and it was fucking funny. But then she just exploded in America, and then she was winning Academy Awards, and I was like, holy shit! Like this.
I think the first time I saw her was in Hot Fuzz, so it's a wild trajectory to have that dorky sort of funny comedic relief moments, and then Broadchurch, and then in Fleabag, she's like, she makes you hate her. Like she's one of the most deplorable, awful people you've ever seen, and it's just it's one of those sort of transformative acting performances where you're just like, man, I could not have loved you more in Broadchurch, and now I despise you. Like this, this is crazy acting that you're able to, just completely shift how you don't look wildly different. It's not like it's a makeup thing doing heavy lifting. It's just performance. Like and they're both written really well too.
One of those actors that can literally just change themselves.
She's great
without an ounce of makeup, without a different haircut, without anything. Just change their body. I saw Gary Oldman. Just to take it back towards horror, because he was in Dracula one time. I saw Gary Oldman giving an interview with someone, and they said, like, how would you go about playing like an evil character? Because you've not played many evil characters recently, and they were completely forgetting the fact that like he's played some of the greatest bad guys of all time, I guess. And he went through his process, and he was literally just like, well, for example, if I'm sitting here and you say something and I just look at you, then that's just an ordinary bloke just looking at you because you're talking. But if I raise my eyes to you and then I move my head towards you, like, and he did it.
He credits it to somebody. He's like, it's an old trick from this guy. I forget what actor it is, from like the 40s or something.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's that like the head lifting his head up towards him and then letting the eyes snap up last.
Yeah,
it's with Stephen Colbert. That's who's interviewing him.
That was it. Yeah, it was a Colbert interview. Just absolutely insane. But anyway, I'm taking up way too much time here. So yeah, that's the two things that I saw this week. I am also going to. I'm planning on going to see the movie that you just talked about, which I've completely forgotten. But the Sam Raimi
Send Help.
Send Help. Yeah. I thought it was like Get Help or something, and I was like, no, that doesn't sound right. I've been blanking on the name of that film for the last couple of weeks, but every time I see the trailer, I'm just like, oh God, I really want to watch that. So hopefully I'll be able to talk about that next week. But for now, that's everything. All
right. Cool. Well, then let's move into our movie of the week. I'm excited to talk about this one with you guys. The Birds from 1963. I'll just read straight off of Wikipedia here. An American natural horror film produced and directed by Alfred Hitchcock, released by Universal Pictures, starring Rod Taylor, Jessica Tandy, Suzanne Pleshette, and introducing Tippi Hedren in her film debut. Loosely based on the 1952 short story of the same name by Daphne du Maurier. I'm going to roll the dice on that. It focuses on a series of sudden and unexplained violent bird attacks on the people of Bodega Bay, California over the course of a few days. let's see here. Cost, this probably is not that relevant. It's from the 60s. You'd have to do all kinds of inflation here. When it was initially, while it initially received mixed reviews when originally released, its reputation over time has improved over time and has since been considered to be one of the greatest horror films of all time. And this cast, too, there's just so much to talk about. So as Andi mentioned at the top of the show, for me, and we can kind of go around and talk about our overall thoughts here at the top. For me, this was one that was just so ubiquitous in the pop culture realm. Even just recently, I saw a pretty funny clip on TikTok where somebody had inserted Big Bird into scenes from the Birds, expertly done too, the way that it was edited. So even recently, I've seen pop culture references to this movie or mashups or whatever. This was what my mom liked a lot. I remember seeing it on TV growing up. Was simultaneously sort of found funny, but also terrifying growing up. This idea that there was this movie where birds were the monster of the movie. And then had an experience watching it now as a 37-year-old that I absolutely did not expect. There were so many things that caught me completely off guard. And yeah, overall, really enjoyed it. Lots of little things throughout that I was getting like sort of obsessed with, and just the structure and decisions, and realizing that movies I had seen in the years since then were very inspired by it or influenced by it in a way that I hadn't realized. Had a really good time watching this, and I'm excited to talk with you guys about it. And then I'll throw the ball over to Dave. This was a rewatch for you. How did The Birds hit you this time around?
It hit me like a seagull to the back of the head. I enjoyed it as much as I did the last time. It's one of those movies that even when you watch it for the first time, you've probably seen a lot of the set pieces in it, so nothing really takes you by surprise. There's one or two bits in it where I'm just like, that took an awful lot of coincidence for that to happen, like the gas station incident. But any excuse for an explosion, right? But yeah, I think this time watching it, what I was struck by and what I noticed, which I didn't notice before, is the fact that there is like literally no soundtrack to this movie. Not in the traditional sense. You have music that's playing in world, because I can't remember the difference between diegenic and diegetic music, so I'll just say in world. But, you have like, there's one scene where Tippi Hedren's character, Melanie, I think her name is, Melanie. Yes. She's playing on the piano. There's the scene where she's sitting outside the schoolhouse and the kids are singing. A song. But other than that, like, it's really difficult to think of any piece of music that was played in the movie at all. Like, it's scored by silence, which in a weird way really ups the tension. And yeah, I think I approached the movie this time more from a technical standpoint than I did from a movie watching standpoint, because I don't feel like it was that long ago that I last watched it. So it was still fairly fresh in my mind. But there is a fantastic documentary that is attached to this DVD, as well as some a deleted scene which was taken out of the movie, which added a little bit more comic levity. And also there's an original ending which was never filmed, but was storyboarded and scripted, which also actually shed some light on some other changes to the script, which I wasn't aware of until I saw these things. So I'll dip into those through time, because for anyone that enjoyed last week, guess what? More of the same. I've got so many notes. But yeah, like, from a technical point of view, it's a really good looking movie, like much better looking than movies that came out at the same time and after as well. Mainly because they eschewed the use of blue screen technology and used something else instead. Again, talk about it later. But it's a very, very good looking film. The one thing that I can't get away from, though, is the often repeated story about Tippi Hedren being locked in a room with a bird or several birds and just kind of having a bit of a breakdown because she wouldn't be let out, and they were filming like her responses, and I don't know how much of those responses found their way into the final movie, but suffice to say, and I don't think this is a shock for me to say, Alfred Hitchcock could be a bit of a dick sometimes. Not the nicest guy in the world, and although Hedren speaks with a lot of fondness about him in the accompanying documentary, there's still some stuff that he pulled that I think you just would not get away with today. He did make a fantastic movie, though. So, I don't know if there's much that I can say about it that I didn't say the last time that that I talked about it. But I'm interested to know what you guys thought about it, because this is the first time that you've both seen it from pillar to post, so to speak. So, who wants to go next? And let's see who hates it and who's in the middle.
Well, I already kind of did mine, so it's Andi.
Oh, all right, yeah.
What'd you think, Andi?
Should I hate it or should I be in the middle now? I think those are the two positions left. So let me be in the middle. I always enjoy just the aesthetics of movies from the 60s, the color palette, the costumes, the everything. Probably because those were movies that I saw when I grew up on TV. And I had cited at least a scene from this movie for years because, as I said, I had seen bits of it, and I don't even remember if I saw that scene in a documentary or if I just caught it on TV one time. But Hitchcock was a very complicated person, to say the least. He probably sexually assaulted more than one woman on his movies, so I think this is one of those cases where if he were still alive, I would probably be harsher on him and on his work. We've talked about Lovecraft and people like that, where you see, okay, their work is so full of racism and other things. You wouldn't support such an artist nowadays, and with living artists, we do that. I have banned several works from several creators from my shelves. Hitchcock is one of those guys where if he were still alive and working, and we knew what we know now about him, and maybe had even more proof about some things, and more people still recounting their experiences with his work, there's a good chance I wouldn't have his work on my shelf. But as it is, that man knew how to shoot a movie, and this one scene that I was alluding to is when Lydia is calling the guy who sold her the chicken feed, and the camera barely moves in that scene, but you have Lydia in the foreground, you have other characters in the background having their own scene, having their own conversation, leaving the room, coming back, while in the foreground you have Lydia on the phone talking to someone who you cannot see and cannot hear, and but the dialogue in the background still a little bit audible, and just how Hitchcock layered that scene, several layers in the picture, and then in the audio as well, and then that's just masterful. Where when the camera is barely moving, the picture is exciting, the image is exciting, because he knew how to stage act this, and the audio thing is something that they later on do in the diner as well. When you have two conversations going on, you hear the one a little bit louder, but in between you hear bits of the other conversation as well. That is something that movies usually do not do, those are like things that I find exciting about this movie, these little directorial decisions. And overall, I thought the movie is a bit long. I cannot say that I was entirely with the movie all the time. I felt like Melanie is forced to listen to those kids singing for a little too long. That song does not end. By the end of the song, I knew the words to it, and then they changed them, which I found confusing. Anyway, yeah, I don't think I find it as suspenseful as other Hitchcock movies. There's other Hitchcock movies that excite me more, that I'm more into, that I'm more of a fan of than this one. I know that this is one of the classics, and of course it influenced so many movies after it. But going forward, this will not be one of the Hitchcock movies that I would pull from the shelf first if I want to see a Hitchcock movie. I thought some of the actors were fantastic. I very much enjoyed Tippi Hedren. I also enjoyed Susan Pleshette, who played Annie. I thought those characters had a great relationship. I enjoyed those moments when just those two in her house having conversations. Mm-hmm. So it has great moments. Overall, I think for my taste, it should be shorter and a little tighter in the storytelling to build more suspense and to keep me excited watching it, because with 2 hours, and it takes a very long time for something exciting to happen. And then you have this thing where you have this in the beginning, you have this starting relationship in a way between those two characters that is evolving in a way, and then it becomes a horror movie very far into the movie, and I don't quite see that it mashes completely, that it fits together that well to have me excited for the whole runtime. I guess that's my take.
So there's a couple of things. He says going to his notes, because that's what I do now. I literally just quote other people.
I've got a few notes this week too, so don't feel bad.
That's cool. Okay. So the first bit was you mentioned about that scene where she's sitting outside the schoolhouse and they're singing Nickety Nackety Now Now Now.
Na, 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 na. I've had that shit stuck in my head since. Andy's absolutely right. It gets looped enough times for it to be like, you're taking this home with you now, motherfucker. Like, this song is with you.
Mentioned about the fact that the lyrics change, and there's a good reason for that, which is that the song isn't actually long enough. The original song was not long enough for the scene as they wanted to shoot it. So they got a member of the crew. He may have been I can't remember his name. I'm sorry, I didn't make a note of it, and there's nothing that I can find very quickly that will tell me what his name was. He gets royalties now because Nickety Nackety Now Now Now. I think he was the sound designer for the film. He asked his daughter, who was of a similar age at the time, "What are you singing at school?" And she said, "Oh, we're singing this." And it turned out that it was a Creative Commons free folk song. Basically, it was like over however many years old it needed to be to use it without having to get permissions or anything like that. And it was by a folk musician called Chubby Parker. But it was too short. So they basically said to him, "We need you to write more lyrics for it." So some of the lyrics in the later stanzas of that song were written by this dude who worked as like a sound engineer or something on the film, and not by, I would assume, Chubby Parker, which might explain the difference in the lyrics a little bit. And then the other bit was the script writer for the movie, whose name I need to very quickly go to the top and find again, Evan Hunter. He was basically employed to write the film because Alfred Hitchcock originally had licensed The Birds to be adapted for one of his TV shows.
What the fuck? Sorry. This motherfucker's Ed McBain. Did you know this, Andi? Do you know Ed McBain? As a crime.
Oh, shit.
You maybe know too, Dave. Yeah, I had no idea.
Okay.
That was his real name. I clicked on it too as you said that to be like, what else does this guy do? And yeah, he was Ed McBain. Sorry, it just blew my mind.
I thought I'd dropped your pants by saying that the film had originally been licensed for the TV show. So yeah, basically he licensed it because he'd previously done a Daphne du Maurier movie, a movie based on one of her books. As his first movie, I think it was. And I think they were friends as well. There's something they say in the documentary where he said, "Oh, my friend Daphne du Maurier, she has this book called The Birds. I want to do it." And then Evan Hunter looked at it and he was like, "Well, this doesn't really work as a drama. It would work as more like a mood piece, but it wouldn't work as like a straight through. Let's follow some characters and this and that." And so Hitchcock basically said, "Okay, well, we'll keep the name and we'll keep the idea of birds attacking people and we'll throw the rest out and you can just write whatever you want." So it's only really very loosely based on the Daphne du Maurier book from what I can tell. But then Hunter gets into his craft and he starts explaining why he wrote it the way he wrote it, and this is where it gets to. See, I had a point. I wasn't wittering for no reason. I was getting to it. So the script was based on an idea of a screwball comedy with a high society woman and a professional guy who kind of get put together in weird circumstances and fall in love over the course of the movie. There are so many of them over the years. And the reason that he did that was because he felt that it would make the horror of the later part of the film more pronounced, because it's like that tonal whiplash of, oh, well, here's the highfalutin woman that hasn't got any worries in the world, and she's fallen in love. She may have fallen in love with this dude who is a solicitor or a lawyer or whatever. So she's going to deliver a couple of lovebirds to her to his sister so that she can get in his good books, and then screwy stuff happens. Except the screwy stuff is apparently the end of the world and a bunch of birds attacking the inhabitants of Bodega Bay for no good reason. So that kind of explains why they wanted to do it that way. Whether it worked or not is certainly another matter. For me, I felt the pacing wasn't actually too bad. I like the fact that they came up with a reason for her to, as weird a reason as it was, for her to travel up to Northern California with a couple of lovebirds just to kind of be involved in the action. I did find it interesting that the beginning of their quote unquote love affair, if there is a love affair there at all, because I'm not entirely sure. His mother certainly likes her, so that's definitely a plus there. It begins with her bringing a couple of birds to Bodega Bay, and it ends with them fleeing thousands of birds from Bodega Bay. It seems
with those two birds.
With those two birds, yeah. It seems to be a nice symmetry, and also like it's very heavy-handed, but lovebirds as well. That kind of works. But yeah, like I get what Andy's saying there. It doesn't necessarily hang together the best in terms of the shift from a very kind of light-hearted, poking the bear kind of relationship, adversarial relationship to that.
Yeah, I agree. It's weird because that it's one of those situations where it's like that's kind of what I did like about it, is that it was an odd tonal sort of swing, but also it is disjointed. Like, it almost reminded me, it's obviously nowhere near as confusing, but it almost reminded me of the beginning of Paprika, where you're just like constantly getting information that characters already have, and you're just having to be like, okay, wait, so she's like socialite. Okay, her dad owns a newspaper. Okay, she was in Rome and fell into a fountain naked. Like, there's all this stuff where you're like having to catch. It's like, and he's a lawyer and he saw her at this thing, but he was actually in there to buy birds for his sister. Holy shit! Why does he have a sister that's so much younger? Well, it doesn't matter. She pretends that she works there. It's just thing after thing where you're like, isn't this movie about some fucking crazy birds? Like, what is this? Like, what kind of movie are we watching? And for whatever reason, I found it to be kind of charming and interesting. There was so much about the movie that I think I was expecting it to be a very specific thing, and it wasn't exactly that. There were definitely moments where I was like, okay, this is, if I had to describe what I thought this movie was going to be, it was scenes like this with like bird attacks and stuff. But there was a lot in it too where I was just like, oh shit, I didn't know that this was how this movie was set up, or that there is no score, like you mentioned earlier, Dave, and it's silent, and that the cast is just there was constantly stuff, but that little moment where I was like, this motherfucker said McBain. That happened to me a lot watching this movie with different actors.
Oh yeah,
too. Where Rod Taylor? I forgot his name. Taylor. He was one where probably a third of the way in, I was like, this guy is weirdly familiar to me for some reason. And I was like, I'm pretty positive I don't recognize him. Like I couldn't immediately place him or be like, oh, this is someone. I was like, at best, I feel like I'm going to look him up and he's going to be like, he was in Gone with the Wind, or he was in like some movie that, and I picked that one because it's a massive movie that I've never actually watched. So I figured it was going to be something like that, where it's like, oh, he was in this other huge movie, and then just through pop culture osmosis, like I kind of am familiar with who he is. And I knew him from two things, neither of which had to do with his physical appearance, at least in how he exists in this movie. The first one was he was the voice of Pongo in 101 Dalmatians. So as soon as I read that, I was like, oh shit, I hear that immediately. Like that wasn't one I watched constantly as a kid, but we watched it a good amount. So I could remember, I could hear that right away. And then the second one was that he came out of retirement to do a final film role, and he plays Winston Churchill in the 5 seconds of footage in Inglourious Basterds where he says, brief him.
Oh,
like
shit.
He's just real gruff. He's like, brief him. Yeah, that's Rod Taylor. So it's very crazy connection. And then his younger sister, what's her name? Kathy. That's fucking Lambert from Alien, Veronica Cartwright.
Yeah,
like, that blew my mind.
I wrote down a few of the different actors, and Veronica Cartwright, like I didn't recognize her in the film, but then when I watched the documentary, I was like, holy shit, that's what's her face from the Invasion of the Body Snatchers, like the
Invasion of the Body Snatchers too. Yep.
And then she's in Witches of Eastwick as the kind of bitchy neighbor who ends up throwing up a bunch of pips from like passion fruit or something, I think it was. I haven't watched that movie in years, but like and then speaking of witches, Suzanne Plachette, she voices Yubaba in Spirited Away. There's like all these connections where I was like, holy fuck. And then Jessica Tandy I recognized, but I couldn't remember, and then when I looked her up I was like, oh shit, she's from Driving Miss Daisy. Exactly the same as me.
Fried Green Tomatoes. My mom watched that movie all the time growing up, so I saw it a lot too, and I remembered her from that. So it's like people that I knew in, older forms. Tippi Hedren I don't know a ton about, other than as I was watching it, I was like, didn't she get her ass fucking mauled by a lion in that Roar movie? Isn't this the same? And it sure is. She was in that movie Roar. I don't know how hurt she got, but that movie obviously infamous for people getting, just their shit rocked by fucking lions and stuff on set.
Yeah. She's probably, her daughter's well known. Like, she's Melanie Griffith's mum.
Oh, that's right.
So there's that.
That's right.
But there's so much. Where do I start? Okay, the Disney connection.
Oh yes, she's Dakota Johnson's grandma. Man, all these connections are crazy.
Holy shit!
Forget all these people are related. Yeah.
Oh anyway. Man, don't you miss the day where all of the members of her family were like had the same name, like? Like the Redmonds or like whatever, they're part of that dynasty. But it's like, okay, so you got Hedren, you got Griffith, you got like, how many fucking surnames do you need, please? like, I get it, it's a patriarchy. The Disney connection, because you mentioned the fact that Rod Taylor played Pongo, and that's a Disney movie. And so I wanted to come back to that because I mentioned earlier about blue screen. And the reason that I mentioned all of that was to say
this is crazy too.
So Disney originally I don't know that they pioneered it, but they were well known for using a process called sodium vapor process, which is an alternative version of blue screen, where you have a yellow screen behind the actor and you have sodium vapor, which is like, it basically is yellow colored, right? And then you have a white light which shines on the actor, and two cameras. One camera is set up so it will literally only capture the outline of the sodium vapor, and the other camera is set up so that it will only capture the actor. And then they take those two frames and they use that to composite a different background behind the actor without having the flame that you would get from like blue screen, where you get blue light showing through individual bits of hair and things like that. You have the same problem with green screen to a lesser extent, but it's still there. So yeah, they decided they wanted to use this process. So they did. The reason it's not used anymore is because it's very cumbersome, because you've got 2 sets of cameras and you've got sodium vapor going all over the fucking place. And like, just, you can do it digitally and you can do it to a really good standard digitally. But it has a specific look, which I didn't realize just how much of this movie used the sodium vapor process before I started watching this documentary. And I was like, they're literally walking from the jetty towards the town. And for some reason, they're doing it on a bloody sodium vapor screen. And I was like, why is that? And apparently it's because Alfred Hitchcock fucking hated on location filming. He despised it to the point that if you watch the first scene of the movie where Tippi Hedren is in the middle of San Francisco, she crosses the road and she heads towards the pet shop. They do apparently what's called a patch match. And I didn't know this. I didn't even notice it until they talked about it in this documentary. So it's on location until she walks behind the poster. There's a poster there, which I think is part of like a newsstand or something. And then when she comes out the other side, they've patch matched to a studio set of a pet shop, which is famously known for one of the Alfred Hitchcock cameos, because he's walking his dogs out of the pet shop as she walks in.
Yeah,
and I've just gained a life because yay me. So yeah, I'm just so excited to be able to somewhat naturally get all of this information out in one go. So I'm fucking going for it, boys. But yeah, so he hated locations.
Go ahead.
Sorry. No, yeah, he hated locations. He loved Bodega Bay because apparently North California has similar weather to Britain. So he was like, I'm home. But the rest of the time he was just like, no, I fucking hate it. It's noisy. I can't control it. We need to film this on set as much as possible. But as I'll go into later, there was a surprising amount of on-location sets that were built specifically for the movie. And I didn't even realize that Bodega Bay is a real place. But apparently it is. So sorry, David, carry on.
No, I was just going to say, I thought all the stuff that you were talking about was fascinating too. Because I recognized, I don't know how to pronounce his first name. It's iWorks. Is it Ub or Ub? iWorks. I knew his name through, again, a lot of the stuff, just other pop culture things. He's the co-creator of Mickey Mouse with Walt Disney and Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, like massive like pioneer in animation and styles. That Skeleton Dance, Silly Symphony, early cartoon that like it had a resurgence with that spooky, scary skeletons meme. And I think about it from, there's a 90s Mickey Mouse game on Super Nintendo that I used to play where you're going through different cartoons that, like, there's a Steamboat Willie episode and a Jack and the Beanstalk, or I'd say episode level. There was this skeleton. There was one based around this animation style. So I knew this dude's name, and then I saw him pop up in the opening credits and was like, what the fuck? How is he connected with this? And I did not realize until I fell down the same rabbit hole of like this particular process that they used, and he was a pioneer of it. And his legacy is, co-creator Mickey Mouse and Oswald and all these early animation things. But then that's also like a very kind of significant footnote too, of like, he also helped with these specific shots in the birds. It's just so crazy how it all connects. There's a similar kind of credit for Bernard Herrmann too, who I don't know the full, I know that he had a long, and I think maybe either tumultuous, I know at a certain point it came to an end, relationship with Hitchcock. And obviously did a lot of like huge collaborations with him. There's no score in this one, but he does have like a specific sound credit. Yeah. That was one thing I found interesting. I would imagine it probably played better back in the 60s. Some of the bird noise effects I thought were kind of funny. They were just like, you could tell that they were trying to take some like bird squawks and be like, let's throw this through a fucking machine. Let's synthesize something. I don't know exactly how they did it, but
it's a synthesizer. Yeah, it was made on
that's what it sounded like.
A mixed trautonium, in an electro synthesizer from the 1930s. invented in
It sounds
Berlin.
cool. It's just pretty like it doesn't quite fit. Like you can tell, and I was watching a 4K, disc of this too, so I don't know how much that potentially helped make it sound, maybe not as good of a match, and I felt kind of similarly, although it was up and down with the visual effects. There were moments where I was like, yeah, this looks old. Like this looks, dated. I'm sure at the time it was, pretty intense. But then there were also shots and moments in the movie where I was like, Jesus, this is fucking still kind of works. Like it does. The one where they come down through the chimney, that whole scene, I was like, holy shit, this scene is nuts. So I thought it still looked fairly good.
Yeah, no, it absolutely did. So there are some scenes where before I knew about this whole process that they go through, I was thinking, it's probably like rear projection or something. But no, it wasn't. It was all done with like 2 cameras and a lot of love and a lot of attention. But yeah, that scene in particular that you're mentioning, again, I've got something written down for that as well. I was a busy boy today. So there were a lot of the bird attacks that were a combination of composite shots as well as real birds and fake birds on the set. And the one you're talking about with the sparrows that come down the chimney, strawberry sparrows, I think, which were name-checked at the beginning of the movie. If you remember, she says, these are lovebirds. And he's like, aren't they strawberry whatever the fuck they were. I can't remember now. But they make a comeback later on just to say, fuck you. Like, you wouldn't buy us. We're going to peck your eyes out. When they were dumped down the chimney, they just kind of sat there. And some of them like flew up, but they didn't go crazy as they were hoping that they would. And so what they ended up doing was pretending that they were being attacked. And then they used sodium vapor processing to add birds into the scene. But I thought that particular scene was probably the single best use of that, because rather than having an entire background, which was done using the process, they just captured the individual birds instead. And they actually used the actors on set reacting to the birds as the background. So they had a much higher quality background, and then fast moving birds that had been captured with this process, which does end up making things look a little more granular. And that's how you could kind of tell when I was watching the movie, certainly. You could see there was a granularity that, again, made me think it was rear projection, because it looks kind of similar sometimes. But I think that when you've got smaller, faster moving things in the foreground, that's where that process really, really sings, because it's too quick for you to be able to be like, I can see all of the grain, and I can see, I genuinely came away from that particular scene thinking to myself, I wonder how many of those birds were actually in the shot with them. And that just kind of speaks to just how well done these special effects were. Like, there's a lot of things. I agree. There's a lot of things here where how they did it. Like, when she gets attacked by that first bird, the seagull, it's just a bird on a string, right? Like they just swing it at her head. But then they go into detail about how they made the entire shot work, and how they had the bird on the string that was also kind of like animated, so it was flapping its wings, but then her hair was done with so much hairspray that she called it a helmet. But they left the bit of hair that got pushed forward by the bird after it attacked her. They didn't put hairspray on that bit, so when it hit her head, it would have the specific effect of just drawing that hair forward. Meanwhile, she's got a plastic tube up the back of her head, and a bloke sitting 6 feet below her with a plunger and a bunch of fake blood. And when they swing the bird down, he presses on the plunger, and you barely see it during the scene. But if you look carefully, you can see a few kind of drops of blood go flying as the bird hits her head and she rocks forward. And I was just like, I did not realize this much work went into that scene. But then when you know about it and you look at it again, you're like, damn, this wouldn't have worked anywhere near as good if they just swung a bird at her head. Like, they had to do all of those other processes, like the hairspray, like the tube in the back of the head to spray a bit of blood. The fact that all of this was done while also using this special process as well. So, because Hitchcock had apparently a weird thing about whenever there's a close-up of an actor, it has to be under studio lights because he wants the best possible look for the character. So those even if it was possible, even if he had wanted to do it on location for the realism of it, like there were so many barriers in the way of that. And the fact that they were able to do it in studio behind, on a screen just made all of these other things even more possible. There are some weird choices, like them just literally walking from the jetty and having this same process done. I'm like, couldn't you do that on location? Like, no, Hitch really fucking hates it here, so we're going to do it in the studio later. They had a bunch of kids on treadmills running for their lives. And Suzanne Plachette, I think was her name, wasn't it? No, that's not her. That's Yubaba. The lady who was in Alien.
Veronica Cartwright.
Veronica Cartwright, yeah. She said, like, you wanted to be at the front of all of those kids because apparently it was just one giant treadmill. Because if you tripped over and fell, you didn't want to get trampled. You'd much rather be at the front so you didn't have all of the other people's legs to trip over. There were mats at the back apparently to catch people as they shot off. But like these were the days before health and safety took over, my friends, and I'm kind of glad it did. But at the same time, like it's almost like there was too much money to call it this with any real kind of meaning. But if you looked at someone making a movie like this today, you might call it almost like guerrilla filmmaking in a weird way. Just, like, okay, how do we get these people running? Well, we'll just put a giant conveyor belt underneath them and just make it really fucking fast. And we're going to strap a couple of models of some birds to the back of these kids' heads and we're going to draw blood on them and just tell them to look really upset. And like, people were scarred making this movie. I'm sure they were.
There's also a few even now, however many decades later, like shots, especially with the kids, where you can't see yet. Like there was one or two where I was like, holy fuck, that looks like that's a dead kid on the screen. Like there's still some pretty effective stuff in terms of that was a weird thing for me too throughout the movie, especially once the attack started ramping up, was I couldn't shake. There was still definitely part of me that had a similar thing as I did growing up, seeing scenes from this or hearing about the movie, where on one hand I was like, okay, yeah, I can see how this would be a problem, like in some of these situations that they're in. But then there's also part of me that's like, it doesn't seem like an insurmountable one though. Like there's still a thing where it's like, I don't know. There's probably part of me that's being a little bit naive. Like you hear those guys that'll be like, do you think you could fight? Like, how many guys would it take? Could you take on like a wolf or like, you hear these guys talking about where their egos or they're just crazy where it's like, no, you'll get fucking destroyed. You'll get killed. You can't fight a wolf or a bear or whatever. Like,
okay. But how people about think 100 mouse-sized lions?
There's part of me with this that I'm just like, I feel like there's ways around. Like, it seems like whenever we do have killer bird stuff in movies, it's always inevitable, and this movie has it too, although you don't see it happen. Inevitably, what has to happen for there to be an edge is that they get their eyes gouged out. Like that's the one like move that birds seem to have that really will kind of turn the scales. But other than that, it's just kind of like a very annoying. And I get that it's a numbers thing, and they have that whole scene in the diner too where Tippi Hedren's explaining like what's going on, and then there's a bird expert lady.
Yeah, and there's that one guy that's just like, fuck them birds, just shoot them.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is a weird thing where like it's an odd, even totally that scene is odd because you have Tippi Hedren who is just like, look, I don't give a fuck whether it's plausible. Like, I just experienced this. So like for her, it's a thing of like, this just happened. I'm not an expert. I'm not saying it makes sense, but like, this is something that happened. Then you have the woman who's like giving the audience a lot of bird facts basically about like how many birds there are in the United States and like it would be a numbers thing. Yeah. And then you have a guy that's downplaying that. But then even the bird lady is downplaying what Tippi Hedren is saying by being like, no, birds don't do that. So you have this weird thing of like three different people arguing about the situation where Tippi Hedren remains weirdly calm throughout it, which I would have hit a breaking point so soon of like, this isn't fucking trivia. I just got attacked. Like this is just what's going on right now.
Somebody
like, we
believe
don't have
me,
to,
for fuck's sake. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a weird scene, but it was also kind of, I don't know. I liked it.
Well,
There's like Andi said earlier too, there's a lot going on with it. Then there's a mother with her kids, and then there's a guy there who's like the fucking town, like harbinger of doom kind of guy or whatever. That's post-apocalyptic shit or whatever that he's spouting off, and
then the waitress is just like, she quotes something back to him, and it's like basically don't drink, and he's like, fuck you.
A lot going on. There was one thing that I thought about throughout the movie, and I'm kind of spoiling my double feature pick here, but it wasn't until I saw this movie that I was like, oh shit, so much about The Happening makes way more sense to me now, the M. Night Shyamalan movie. Like, that's a movie that we all talk about and reference and joke about because it's not a good movie, right? Like, it's pretty bad. And I've only seen it once or twice, saw when it came out. I've gone back and watched scenes from it. It gets memed a lot. There's a lot of very odd performances and deliveries from fucking Marky Mark and Zooey Deschanel, and people make fun of it because of the wind and all these things. And again, not defending the movie necessarily, but there was such a similar tone in this where I was like, oh, I would be shocked if that wasn't an influence in some way on The Happening, because that sort of nature, environmental horror kind of thing where one of my favorite reviews on Letterboxd too was by Josh Simmons, who's been on the show before, big fan of his. And he watched it and logged it in October of 2020. And he was talking about how, like, he's like, man, there's already an influx of movies. This is what he wrote at the time. I'm paraphrasing, but influx of movies that are trying to capitalize on the whole COVID thing right now. And none of them have really felt like what it is. But this movie so far to me feels the most like what it feels like right now, which is just this sort of like mass panic, like no. And that's something I absolutely felt in the movie, and also felt this way in The Happening, where no one knows what the fuck's going on. Like, it is a complete question mark, and they're all terrified, and you don't get answers. So there's not really an explanation of the specifics of what's going on with these birds. There's not, again, it doesn't, to me, feel like an insurmountable problem. Yeah, no, absolutely. I read that too. Like, he took some pages out of the ending and wanted to leave it more ambiguous. I think that was a great move, because that was one of the biggest surprises about the movie for me, was the overall tone. By the time you get into it and you get where it's going, the tone shifts, and it is, even though it's more reserved, it's from the 60s, whatever else, it still feels fucking bleak. Like, there's still an air of just kind of like darkness and misery to the movie by the end of it, where again, the analog, I think, to a pandemic feels so apt, because no one really knows what to do, and you don't really know, like, you think some things you can maybe do that might help, but there's so many unknowns, and you're scared to leave the house. Like, there's just all these aspects of it that feel insurmountable, even though at the end of the day, I'm like, I mean, we've got guns and flamethrowers, and we've got ways to fight birds if we need to fight birds. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too naive in my thought that we would do okay. Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's ways to fight this, but the tone that the movie does capture.
A few even easier things where you should definitely question the decisions that some characters in the movie make. Yeah. You have all these sparrows come through the chimney. Leave the room.
Yep.
You have more rooms in this house.
There's a lot of that in the movie. Yeah.
Need to all be in that room. Why leave the schoolhouse? Exactly.
Really, I thought about that too. Yep. Yeah. On Wikipedia, it literally says in the description that they and that's another reason I should have said this earlier, that I might have been a little bit more forgiving about the structure, because I started watching this earlier this week when I was more sick, and I had fucking shivers. I've been fighting a viral thing, and I fell asleep. So when I woke up at one point midway through and was like, I'll keep watching this and then I'll go back and rewatch. And I was like, that's stupid. Maybe there's stuff that's set up. I need to just go back and start over where I was at. So I kind of watched it out of order a little bit, and then went back and watched it all the way through. And I was back on Wikipedia looking through, because that was the first thought I had, was why. And Wikipedia says it's because of the giant windows that are in there. But there was also part of me that was like, yeah, but I mean, all the houses have windows. It's okay.
Yeah, they all have windows.
I thought they do. They do immediately make all the kids go outside where the birds are. Which
but then you don't get the set piece, and Hitch doesn't get his chance to get a bunch of kids on the treadmill and potentially skittling each other over. It's like, it's a whole thing, and
that's the main sequence that I saw Big Bird from the Muppet from Sesame Street inserted into. He was running with those kids that are screaming.
I mean,
good.
wouldn't you? Like, oh shit. Yeah, there's definitely logic gaps in the movie. I think one of the things that I had the biggest problem with was you've got this thick ass oak door at the front of the house, and I'm supposed to believe that these birds are able to just peck through it like it's balsa wood or something. Like,
yeah, don't get me wrong. There would be some areas in certain birds where it would be a bigger challenge. But yeah, to your point, like, man, I did laugh out loud after that sequence where they come through the chimney and they have the cop come over, and there's just this cut to the cop picking up a dead bird. He's like,
"What do you want me to do?
That's
Arrest
a sparrow, all right."
Yeah, exactly.
Like, he says it, and Rod Taylor's like, "We fucking know what they are, Lou," or whatever his name is.
But it does.
We didn't call you over here to ID a bird.
But it does point to. I don't know if this was the intention, but it almost points to. And I'll reference to something that Hitchcock said about the movie after it was released, where essentially he claimed that the whole point of the movie was that it's a movie about the danger of complacency and about taking nature for granted, and about how powerless that we can be in the way of the sheer raw power of nature. And that is kind of laid bare with the fact that they have a policeman come over, and it's like, well, what do you want me to do? Because these birds, if I tell them it's illegal for you to come into this house, they're not going to listen to me. Like, man's laws, man's laws are a construct. They are not based in the law of nature. If these birds want to kill you, I can't arrest them. I don't have little tiny handcuffs for their wings. Apart from anything else, like, what am I supposed to fucking do? Like, when people say you're going to go to prison and do bird, they're not talking literally. The Birdman of Alcatraz was a man.
What a movie it would have been if they would have opened up drawers of, like, finally we can use these tiny bird handcuffs we've been saving for years.
Yeah. But yeah, man, like, I think that there are definitely, like, gaps in the movie, but the thing is, like, it's not high concept science fiction. It's literally just, what if a bunch of birds decided they'd had enough of our shit? And then humans make dumb decisions. And I think it would have helped them immeasurably with that school scene, if they had made mention of the fact, if the two adults in the room had just had a very quick kind of like 2-second conversation where one of them had said, I've seen these birds fly at and through windows. These children are not safe here. There are no other rooms in this schoolhouse where we can keep them safe. There's no basement or anything like that. I think we're better off if we try to get them out of here and to their own homes where they may be able to secure themselves a little better. But then that flies in the face of getting into a car and winding the windows up to keep yourself safe, because glass is fucking glass, like
Yeah.
It's at some point I just kind of sit back and I accept they want to put people in peril, and this is the way to do it. For me, I think what buys them a lot of leeway for me is going back to that scene of her sitting outside. And I know that Andy thought it went on too long, and I'm inclined to agree slightly, but the way that the build-up in tension is handled when she's sitting on the bench smoking her cigarette and the camera clocks one crow sitting on top of the playground apparatus, and you immediately know what's happening, and it goes back to her, and then it goes back to the apparatus, and there's like 4 or 5 of them, and all you can hear is children singing, which is fucking creepy at the best of times. And then, it keeps going from her smoking her cigarette back to the crows. And I wonder if the point of the scene is that if we as people weren't taking, again, for granted the fact that we are the masters of our environment, if they had taken to heart the fact that these birds are ganging up against us and we're not safe with them, then maybe she would have paid attention to what was going on around her rather than sitting there idly puffing on a cancer stick while the forces of evil were gathering against her. Because she only notices when one bird flies in her eye line and she looks around and it's like, oh shit, there's a fucking aviary there. Maybe if she'd been a little bit more worried about the possibilities of the birds being a threat to them and less worried about just sitting there and having a puff, that could have been completely avoided. But no, it's like, oh, I have to respect the law of the classroom and let them finish their song. So I'll come out and have a cigarette. Oh, birds aren't that much of a threat anyway. I'll just have a quick puff. And then essentially, like, her hubris and the hubris of man in general is punished because they end up having to make this run, this gauntlet, to get to safety. And those kids must taste fucking good to those birds because they kept on going at them. Like, none of them got out of it. That poor girl that face planted on the floor, she slid.
Oh, yeah.
She fucking slid. Holy shit. So yeah,
Hitchcock shot her ass off a treadmill.
Hell yeah. No, I think that's exactly what happened. So it's got its faults. It absolutely has. And I acknowledge those. But I feel like there's so much technically going on with this movie that I absolutely love. And it's not trying to say too much. It's leaving itself very open. The film itself leaves itself very open to interpretation. And somebody in the documentary, and I don't know if they were quoting what Hitchcock said or if what they thought themselves, but there was a feeling that if they tried to explain what was happening, that the film would veer into sci-fi territory. And they didn't want to do that. So they left it open. And the whole point of that scene in the diner with the ornithologist expert and the drunk guy and the mother who must have... I'm going to say it, but, I hope people take this the right way. You know how they keep saying how 45-year-olds today look a lot younger than 45-year-olds did 50 years ago?
Dude, when I fell asleep, the first, I was sick, but there were a couple moments when I woke back up where I was like, man, Tippi Hedren looks old. Like, I was mixing her up for a second with...
It wasn't her, like, it was the mother with her kids. Yeah, I was like, that's their grandmother, right? No, that's their mum.
So that's a thing I saw on Letterboxd I was going to bring up. So one of the people that I follow is a guy named Scott Reynolds, who he's a screenwriter. He wrote on a lot of Dexter, Jessica Jones, The Iron Fist Show. I think he wrote on as like the main. Well, I think he's been responsible for the main new Dexter stuff too that people really like. Okay. So I've always liked his reviews, but he wrote. I'm just going to read his actual review here. I took a screenshot of it. Still a stunner, fun to watch even with a hipster crowd, he wrote in 2015. So this is a 10-year review or 11-year review. But he said, I was watching this at the cinema, blah, 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 and realized something. Mitch and Annie, the teacher, they had a relationship back in the day, back in the city. So this is talked about in the movie. Suzanne Pleshette's character. Mitch has a sister who's Kathy, played by Veronica Cartwright, who is a full 30 years younger than him. Not to mention that his mother is way too old to have a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Now, I might be slow, but did Annie move to the island because Mitch got her pregnant? And then the way he breaks this down, I was like, oh shit, this is pretty genius. He said she moved to the island and quietly had the child. Mitch's mom takes care of her, which is why she doesn't approve of any woman that Mitch brings home. He's just going to have another bastard child. Meanwhile, Annie moves permanently to the island to be near her child, much like Moses' mother did in the Bible. Just a thought. I was like, that's pretty solid, man. Like, and it also kind of makes sense of all the weird, because that is a thing where he's like, when he first says that, he's like, I'm buying some birds for my sister. You're like, okay. And he's like, she's turning 11. You're like, fucking what? You're like, you look like you're almost 40.
Yeah,
he's
only 22 in this movie. It's just he looks really fucking old.
Maybe
I have no idea. I genuinely have no idea. But the aging
something that does not work out if we believe the movie. The relationship was 4 years ago when his father passed away.
Right, yeah.
Damn it.
Than 4 years old.
God damn it. Yeah. I like that theory as well. Oh, well.
It sounded great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, if we believe the timeline of the movie, it doesn't quite work out.
Sod it. I guess he's just very, very young for his looks then.
I guess.
Oh, man. Yeah, but yeah, so like everybody's got their theories about it in that diner scene, and they all posit them, and then there's no confirmation one way or the other. So the idea there is to give us all various ideas of what could be causing it, but not to actually confirm anything. There is also a further scene which you mentioned about earlier, actually, that was deleted. They filmed it was ready to go, and then Hitchcock was like, no, I don't want it in the movie. And it's a scene that takes place between the birthday massacre. That's a band. And and the later attack at the schoolhouse. And it's between Mitch and Melanie, and it's very jokey. She makes a thing about, oh, I know what happened. There was a sparrow in the forest, and he basically was like, comrades, we must rally together against these humans. And Mitch is like, oh yeah, did he have a beard? And she was like, yeah, he had to have a beard because they won't take him seriously without one. And they basically go on this whole kind of comedic kind of this is what's happening thing. And then he very seriously says something along the lines of, well, it was a pretty bad summer. Like birds will forage berries and things in the forests, and with the fires this year and with the bad weather, they probably are quite hungry. Basically saying they've decided to replace their food with us, which was pretty fucking dark, but that was always the intention anyway. And I don't know if it was the comedic nature of it, or he just didn't like the fact that they kiss at the end of the scene. He didn't want there to be this real concrete confirmation of the relationship. But he got rid of it one way or the other. So there were even more theories that were supposed to find their way into the film that just ended up not getting there. I wonder maybe because when you've got like one of the leads of the movie coming up with a theory, a lot of the logic and the nature of the movie going public is, well, if the lead is saying that this is what's happened, that's probably what's happened. And he didn't want anything that was anywhere near concrete. So to leave your lead characters not knowing what is going on and everyone else around them suggesting it could be this, it could be that, or they haven't got the brain pan to think of these things, like that leaves it a lot more ambiguous as to what the real cause of it is. That's worth thinking about.
Absolutely. I think I'm trying to look at my notes. I think that's pretty much all I have about the movie, other than me just thinking of random little moments or whatever. It just overall, I was just really surprised by how it was at times exactly what I was expecting, but then also just the tonal shift of it and the overall vibe and the lack of score really does make I think a huge kind of impact on how it feels and the dread of all of it. I was not expecting it to go the way that it did.
No, it definitely
not explaining anything is a bold choice too.
It's a bold choice, sure. But I respect it.
Works for me. Me too.
I think the way that the movie ends, it does end on almost like a down note. It's not like a hopeful ending. It's not like, we won, we escaped.
It's fucking catatonic.
Yeah.
Shit is bad.
But the thing is, like, that wasn't the original ending. And if they had gone with the original ending, it would have been a little bit more optimistic. Essentially, I say original ending, it was an extension of the escape. So they drive away from the house. Everything that happened up to that point, to the end of the movie, happens. Then they continue to drive through the town. They see bodies of people that didn't escape. They see one guy propped up against a building with a shotgun in his hands. I don't know if he's shot himself or if he was trying to shoot the birds and they just got the better of him or not. And there's a moment where they turn to Melanie because there's, they're not blocked in, but it's a choice. Do we go for it? Do we like put the pedal to the metal and really try to escape this place as quick as we can? Or do we try and find another way? Because there's quite a lot of birds just sitting, roosting, looking at them, waiting to pounce. And they turn to Melanie, who has been the most affected by what has happened. And she gets a moment where she gets to basically take her agency back a little bit and says, we haven't got much choice, let's go for it. And then he sticks his foot down and they race through and the birds manage to pull the top off the car. But they eventually outrun them and they escape. And then at the end of the movie, one of them, I can't remember because I didn't write down the quote now, but I think it's Mitch. He says something like, we made it, we lost them. Just as the sun begins to emerge from behind the hills and sheds new light on a new day, which I think visually would give you a much more positive ending. But the fact that they ended it where they did, where they're escaping under the cover of dark, they're surrounded by birds, and they are very gingerly just driving off. No music, no swelling orchestral score to say, we did it, we survived. It's literally just kind of sneaking out the back door and abandoning this world to the birds. It kind of feels like a bit of a down ending, which I'm not against. I actually think it works as an ending, but it does come across as a very anticlimactic. It's not nihilistic, but it's certainly like it's an ending which concedes the battle to the birds. There is no fight back from mankind. They hear on the radio reports of the army may be sent in. It's like, well, what are you going to do other than get a flamethrower and make a bunch of Christmas turkeys? But like, you know, that's literally it though, isn't it? It's like, well, do we massacre the local wildlife or do we just let them have this area? Because it seems to be focused just on that area. It's almost like the birds are like, no, this is ours. Get out. We want this place.
I think there's a reference to another town having had a similar thing. I read that was a reference to the real life thing this was kind of based off of, which at the time they didn't have an explanation, but it sounds like it was what did I read? It was like an algae. It was something that the birds in the area, like it was driving them crazy. Like they had eaten or consumed or had been kind of poisoned by or whatever. This was
Last
in real
of Us,
life.
brainworm, fungus things.
Yeah. And then that's kind of like, you know, referenced in the movie as it having a similar thing having happened once before. I forget where they say Santa Cruz or something. But
yeah, it was based on something that had come up in the news in the years before, as well as obviously the Du Maurier book, which I kind of want to read now to see what the difference is. One last thing, because I know we're kind of wrapping up. It feels like we're getting to that point now. I wanted to shout out to Albert Whitlock, who's a matte painter who painted a lot of the backdrops and scenery for the movie. And you may not have even noticed it because he's that fucking good. There's the scene where Melanie gets in the skiff for the first time and is making her way over to the house to drop the birds off and make her escape. And you get a blocking shot, if that's the right word, of her in the boat, in the water, and the entirety of the town and the rolling hills behind her. Everything above the waterline is a matte painting. It's not real.
Pretty crazy.
It is so fucking good. But there's a side shot of her during that scene as well. That's a matte shot as well. And I could not believe it when I heard that, because it never even occurred to me watching that the backdrop to her little ocean-going voyage was invented, that it was made up. But it was.
I could sense that something was different about the shot, but I assumed it was more of that. What the fuck was it called? Not nitrate. The
sodium.
Yeah. Like yeah. I wondered if it was another one of those things, but I would not have guessed matte painting. So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. The mixture of techniques and things that were employed on this movie to make it what it was, it's just absolutely mad. Like set dressing as well. Like we mentioned before that this movie is based in a real place, in Bodega Bay. But that schoolhouse didn't exist before that movie was made. They built that schoolhouse specifically on site for the movie. The house where the climactic scenes take place did exist, but it was a rundown ruin that hadn't been lived in for years. So they completely renovated it on the outside so that they could shoot exterior shots. Obviously, the interior shots, because of Hitchcock's love of location shooting, was done in a studio. But yeah, like the length and breadth of skills that were involved in making this film is just insane. You know, most of this stuff would just be done digitally now, I guess. Like they would massage the background to make it look nicer. They would, they would probably still build the schoolhouse, or they might find one in a different location and just match it to the rest of the town, do some digital wizardry to make it sit up on the hill when you're establishing shots of the place. I'm fairly certain that the shot that shows you the aftermath of the gas station explosion is partially matte painting, but I don't know where the matte painting ends and the real parts begin, because I genuinely it's a really cool shot. Especially when you then use the sodium vapor screen technology to insert seagulls hovering overhead, looking at what they've done. Look upon my works and despair, ye mortals. I am seagull, hear me roar. I've mixed a lot of different literary sources there. I apologise to everybody. But yeah, I like the idea of a bearded sparrow sitting in the woods, just being like, "I masterminded all of this, comrades." It's just such a mad idea, and I am so disappointed it didn't make the final movie. Not the bearded sparrow, but the talk about it for sure.
Oh, I was gonna say. I thought you were being. I was gonna say what I missed the most, or I'm bummed, is the tiny little wing cuffs that we could have gotten for those birds. That lit a fire in my imagination when you said that.
You never know. We might be covering a movie in future that would be brave enough to do such things.
That's true.
I have no idea if that's the case or not, but
that's true. All right, cool. Let's do double feature picks. I can knock mine out of the way I can get mine out of the way since I already said it earlier. I'm going to go with The Happening by M. Night Shyamalan. Be a very weird double feature, but also weirdly tonally consistent in a lot of ways, I think. So, Andi, what do you got this week?
I recently saw a video essay about a movie that we did an episode on years ago, and it was The Bay from 2012.
I thought about that earlier, yeah.
Mockumentary found footage movie, which is about a small town in a bay being attacked by a different kind of monster. But I think, that watching the birds very much and having seen and having been reminded of the bay just recently, just the other week, basically, I think, they fit very well together. Basically more or less the same locale and the bay, a variation of what they did with the birds, and of course the underlying ecological commentary that they both share.
Oh yeah, and definitely the same similar kind of ramping up of, by the time you get to the end of the movie, it's just like no one knows what to do and it's completely out of control. Yeah, it's a great pick. What about you, Dave?
So there's two options here. The one I'm not going to go for is Jaws. The reason I was thinking about it was because there is a ongoing motif. Well, not ongoing, but there's certainly a motif through part of both movies where you've got someone that's experienced an attack and other people that are questioning whether or not they can be right, or doubting that they even experienced such a thing. Like you've got the sheriff of a town who wants to close the beaches, and the mayor is just like, can't close the beaches, it's going to ruin the town financially. It's probably not a shark anyway, it was probably just this or that or the other, like, we don't believe you. And then, the shit hits the fan. But the reason I'm not going to go for that is because there is a specific scene in The Birds that immediately made me think of this other movie, and it's the scene where the mother, who I have been very nasty about for being looking more like the grandmother of the two kids who they were frightening with all their talk of the birds attacking and the end of the world and all of that. She just turns on Melanie and is like, "You're evil and it's your fault. It wasn't a problem until you came here." And that reminded me so much of a religious zealot in a 2007 movie directed by Frank Darabont called The Mist.
Similar ending too. I thought about The Mist earlier when we were talking about that.
I didn't even think about the ending.
Extended thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
I almost made a joke about the ending of The Mist and was like, well, in case there's someone out there who hasn't watched it, I won't spoil a whole other movie.
No.
But yeah, great pick.
There you go.
And similar sense of dread. Cool. Listeners, let us know what you thought of The Birds if you watched it. If you haven't, definitely recommend checking it out. And send us your thoughts, whether it's over on Instagram, social media, or on longer form email, eerieinternational@gmail.com. We can announce next week's episode, right? And did we already do it?
Yeah.
Do it.
Okay.
No, we haven't yet.
we are staying bird themed, but in a wildly different tone. We're going to be talking about Birdemic, movie from. Does it have a longer title? I can't remember now.
Shock and Terror. Birdemic, Shock and Terror.
Shock and Terror. From I don't remember off. Does anybody have the year?
2009. 2007.
That would be my guess.
Like yeah. Hang on.
9 or 10 would be my guess.
Birdemic. 2010. Okay.
08.
8.
All right.
Okay. Someone's lying to me
2008.
here. What the fuck?
So
Wikipedia says
yeah.
08. So
Yeah.
Infamous movie, horror kind of, operated, or what's the word I'm looking for? Occupied is similar.
Sorry to interrupt again. Wikipedia actually lists 2 release dates, 2008 Los Angeles and then 2010, probably why it doesn't mention that. So it seems like there was a premiere in 08 and then they released it in 10. I don't know.
Can't imagine why it took 2 years to release this.
There will be a lot of notes, I would imagine, for next week too.
I'm not going to bother. I'm genuinely not going to bother next week.
I'm at least going to be reading them, so I'm sure I'll bring up some of it. But yeah, I had a pretty kind of crazy cult path to. If you've heard about this movie, odds are it's because it had this kind of cult, moment in pop culture when it came out. So I remember a lot about it when it happened, but never actually watched it. And is a infamously bad ? I don't actually know. I remember kind of the conversation, the dialogue around the movie when it came out, and that I have an association with The Room for it, the Tommy Wiseau movie. Like it had a similar sort of thing where people were watching it kind of ironically, it felt like, but it also became a thing where people started to kind of genuinely like it, and it ended up having sequels and more work for people involved. And so, yeah, we'll get into all of that next week, but a very different kind of bird horror movie. Although I would imagine this had to have been an influence, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll get into it and talk about it next week. So if you haven't watched The Birds, watch that. And then if you haven't watched Birdemic, watch that for next week. We'll be getting into it. In the meantime, stay safe out there. Keep watching horror movies, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.